SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Will East in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this hump day, as Rhino would say. What's up, Will?
Oh, man, a lot of news over the past 24 hours.
So I got to crank it up with this one. Man, yet another near midair collision of commercial air traffic. Two commercial planes nearly collide midair, forced to abort landings at JFK, American Airlines and Air Canada. Jeez. This is getting to be a little bit too regular. This is just as many in as many days. The jet veered straight into Jazz Aviation Flight's 554's route while it was preparing to land, coming less than a football field length away from the aircraft. That's a no-no. Man, oh, man. So, no incident, nobody hurt, everything good. The FAA said both flight crews properly responded to onboard alerts, effectively averting a disaster in the skies. The Republic Airways, of course, which operates the service for American Airlines, said the crew received a resolution advisory, which was just, hey, you're in the way. Get out of the way. That's essentially what that consisted of. Resolution advisory is an anti-collision announcement, and it's dispatched by the system itself. The onboard systems these days. Well, it's been longer than these days. This has been technology installed in commercial aircraft and even a lot of private aircraft for quite some time. A traffic collision avoidance system, TCAS, Will, is the acronym commonly used to refer to that technology, that onboard technology, TCAS. And they all have it now. And kind of like you're familiar with vehicles that nowadays, in the last few years, that have been manufactured, when something happens, they'll give you an audible alert. Mm-hmm. Same deal. Except this says, you got traffic, and it'll tell you where it is and what its altitude is and what its position is and so forth. TCAS. And, of course, air traffic controllers have those TCAS capabilities in front of them as well. Yeah. But, nonetheless, everything was warning. All the systems were working properly. Something just happened here.
But the big news last night, there was two big news stories last night.
Okay.
Obviously, the Virginia vote to redistrict, which surprising result. I mean, it passed, but the numbers were a little surprising. It was only 120,000 votes, I believe.
Very low turnout.
Very low turnout, and not a big. It was, like 51-48 or something, some number like
51-49, I think they said.
51-49. It was really close. The other big news last night.
Okay.
The Southern Poverty Law Center.
You beat me to it. Absolutely. The Department of Justice has charged the Southern Poverty Law Center. They've been indicted, actually, on charges related to secretly funding right-wing extremist group that it was supposedly, ostensibly combating. I mean, that's what they do, right? They go after right-wing ideology and groups that support that, paid at least $3 million to 8 individuals. Some associated with the Ku Klux Klan, the United Klans of America, the National Socialist Party of America, the Aryan Nations affiliated Sadistic Souls Motorcycle Club, never even heard of that, and the American Front.
Yeah.
That's those are the individuals, the groups that are involved.
If you don't know what the Southern Poverty Law Center is, it is a civil rights group that has been around since, I guess, the 70s. And they are well known for going after extremist, usually white, right-wing groups.
Yep.
They are often cited in the media. You see them cited all the time by national media organizations. They're kind of the go-to source for information about these extremist groups. And what this Justice Department investigation is saying is that essentially they were giving money to these groups to have these rallies and fund their causes, and then on the back end was going and saying, look, hey, we're fighting these guys.
Well, and because that ostensibly would increase their funding, right, and their support, because these people that they supposedly oppose. And
it's like a house is on fire over there, and you're going to your neighbors saying, hey, I need money to, and secretly you're going over there buying gasoline and throwing it on the fire.
Unbelievable. Right. While at the same time supporting the fire department. It's kind of what this is not surprising, honestly. I've never had a lot of trust in this group, their cause, their purpose, their mission, what value they actually create, other than bloviate about all of that more than anything else. Of course, got to point it out. Well, huge opponents of education freedom, school choice,
right.
Big time.
Yeah.
So, Southern Poverty Law Center, basically, they needed stronger enemies. That's what they needed.
Yeah.
They needed their enemies to be well funded, so that they could keep shaking people down for their cause. That's what it really amounted to.
That's what this indictment basically says. And the big kind of flashpoint for me was the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. If you'll remember, that was a huge moment in the first
Still
Trump
gets a lot of attention.
Gets a lot of attention. Well, according to this indictment, the guy who helped organize all that,
exactly right,
the Southern Poverty Law Center allegedly paid him to organize it.
Funded him for it. Yeah, exactly. Supported it financially.
Yeah.
Incredible.
To the tune of $270,000 just to this one individual, according to this indictment.
Yep. The FBI director, Kash Patel, last October said the FBI would sever ties, I'm quoting here, with the SPLC, calling it a, quote, partisan smear machine, no doubt. Of course, their response, well, SPLC will vigorously defend ourselves, our staff, and our work. We will continue to fight hate, and we will continue to envision and create a safer and more just world. You just gave people who you claim to be the biggest haters in the country money to promote their message and their mission. This is sick. This is insane. But it's almost like a situation, and Rhino and I have talked about this many times, where they need this kind of stuff to happen. It's when there's an incident involving, this is like the jackpot, this is like winning the big Mega Millions or the Powerball lottery when it's over $1 billion. It's when it's a white police officer that is dealing with a black person who has allegedly committed a crime. If you think about that, a perpetrator, right? So if you got that combination, white police officer, black perpetrator, man, that's like they're celebrating. They're not mad at this. They're high-fiving in the SPLC office. Here we go. This is going to get us more money so we can go shake people down and enjoy this cushy lifestyle we have under the auspices of fighting hate. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
They celebrate it. It floats their boat. They don't want it to go away. It's why they keep bringing up stuff from 1860. That is the basis of their existence. They want people to believe we're still in 1860. They really do. And they raise money from it. And again, enjoy very comfortable lifestyles as a result. So they need crazy stuff like this to happen. They need what they term as hate to happen.
They got to have an enemy to fight.
Got to. So they need a well-funded enemy. You can't make it up, as this saying goes. But again, I just got to point out, as a proponent of education freedom, these are the people among those leading the anti-education freedom fight. Southern Poverty Law Center, crooked as all get out. We got Brad White, Executive Director of the Mississippi Department of Transportation, coming in the Element Wealth Studio next. Stick around for that.
6 days on the road and I'm gonna make it home tonight. 6 days on the road and I'm gonna make it home tonight.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
On the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends. I can't wait to get on the road again.
I see what you did there, Will.
On the road again.
Appropriate bumper music for the Executive Director of the Mississippi Department of Transportation, Brad White. Good to see you there, Mr. Director. Thanks for coming in.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. So start out by just giving us a basic update from the Mississippi Department of Transportation.
Well, we got the legislative session behind us. I think everybody, including the membership of the legislature, was happy to see sine die come and go. This has been probably the most pro-transportation legislature we've had in 40 years when you look at what they've done this past term. This year, some significant things. They gave us our budget with our special programs that was earmark free for the 5th year in a row. The reason that's important is, as we've talked before, we run a reimbursement program where we have to spend our state funds first, and if the Federal Highway Administration sees that we're doing things in accordance with their rules and regulations, they reimburse us the federal money that's been set aside for Mississippi. So when the legislature used to practice these earmarks in that program, they would limit our ability to put state funds up that would be eligible for a federal drawdown. So by not doing the earmarks, we've been able to maximize our use of federal funds for the last 5 years and not only use 100% of the federal money set aside for MDOT, but go after other states' federal funds that maybe they weren't able to use that we still had the ability to draw down on. So they were good to us in that regard. Our overall budget is going to be close to about $2 billion.
$2 billion.
Probably the biggest that we've ever had. 1.6 of it roughly is special funds, the rest supplemental money that the legislature's appropriated for various things from the capacity program to IIJA and other things. Another significant thing they did that you deal with by virtue of being a member of the lottery board is they repealed the repealer of the $80 million that we get from the lottery. So that will continue to be a portion of our recurring revenue. The commission has put 100% of that money on two-lane highways. To date, we've been able to rehabilitate over 3,100 miles of two-lane highway around the state. We're happy to see that will continue going. And then in dealing with some other things from our staff retention and things, they worked with us to make sure our frontline workers and lower paid employees, we would be able to continue to try to address the retention problem that we've had there. So it was overall a good session. There were moments that it was challenging, but we ended on a really good place, and I can't thank them and Governor Reeves enough for their cooperation and support.
So you got my attention with the $2 billion. Weren't we at about 1.5, 1.6 last year?
Well, and the special funds is still that 1.5, but see, the this legislature over the last 5 years has given MDOT more than $1 billion in one-time money to move these big capacity projects out of the queue. $150 million of that was from this very session. So they also have to authorize us to spend the one-time money they've given us over the years. So that comes for the next year will be about another $500 million, and that's how we arrive at the $2 billion figure of what we'll be spending over the year.
And we should point out, those monies don't come from the general fund of the legislature. They don't come from general fund revenues, right? Those are appropriated from
the supplemental money but the $1.56 billion that we get, those are fuel tax. That's authority to spend the federal dollars that the Federal Highway Administration's authorized to spend in the state.
That's straight to DOT.
Right. That's giving us the authority to spend those special monies that are going to be sitting there for us to use.
I got you.
So it's very beneficial, and they gave us full authority, so we're not going to be leaving anything on the table, which is very important.
Okay. All right. So you guys, you got a lot of work to do, but it sounds like you may have the funds to get that work done.
Yeah, $150 million for capacity was a little short of what we needed to move the next 3 projects that are kind of in the queue that would be ready over the next year. The first one of those is the I-55 in Madison County that goes from 463 up to Gluckstadt and widening the interstate and building the approaches to that Reunion overpass. You've got Highway 25 in Rankin County, and then a little bit after that, we'll be ready to go with I-55 or a segment of I-55 in DeSoto County.
Okay.
But $150 million, that gets us a long way, and we're working now with the commissioners to look within our program and our budget to find a way to show how we could cash flow the remainder of that and make sure that those projects don't sit on a shelf. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to make that happen and looking to be able to pardon the pun, but get something concrete over the next few weeks.
Gotcha. Well, I think we also have to recognize that the state has enjoyed considerable success in recruiting industry under the state, certainly in no small part attributed to the governor and his focus on this, Mississippi Development Authority, of course, the local economic developers. It's a team endeavor, big time. So from the local level all the way up to the governor's office. Infrastructure is pretty critical to attracting those projects and to servicing the needs of these companies, and they take a hard look at that before they make investments.
Absolutely. I mean, as it's been said, if they can't get here, they're not coming.
Yeah.
There's no accident that Nissan located on an interstate with a rail line nearby, an airport close by. The same with Toyota. There was a lot of infrastructure improvements that were made there. Project Poppy that's going on right now, the infrastructure that we're putting in place there, working with the locals and MDA.
Yeah.
Bill Cork and his team at MDA do a phenomenal job, and I think that I can say with confidence that the vast majority of those prospects that they deal with, that infrastructure is going to be a key part of that. And as we try to remind our policymakers in the state, what we do is a core function of government. It's one of the few things that taxpayers expect to see back from their government. They want to stay safe. They want to be able to get from A to B. And being able to provide that infrastructure is so important, not just for the daily lives of Mississippians, but also, like you said, industry. They want to be able to know that they can get both their people and their product, their goods, in and out in an efficient manner. And having a robust, I would say, multimodal transportation system around the state is very important.
Yeah, and we can't discount the fact, Brad, that when these suitors are deciding on a location, they're looking at the equivalent in the other states as well to see which serves their needs the best.
Exactly right. And unfortunately, in years past, we fell behind a lot of those states in the investments that we were making in the transportation system.
Yeah.
But we're playing catch up now, and I feel very good about the direction we're going. I think that our policymakers have a better understanding of how our program works. By understanding that, they know how to make the right investments to get the biggest bang for our bucks. We've worked very hard at the department. I say all the time, the best way to get what you want is to deserve what you want. So we've worked very hard to try to be transparent, provide the legislature and the governor and the congressional delegation with where our money goes. And with a budget our size, I can tell you that over 97% of that touches a project in some way across the modes of transportation.
Okay.
So I feel very good about the transparency that the agency has, our ability to forecast where the money's going, our ability to communicate that to our leaders, both from a local level up, so that they can have confidence that the money's getting where their constituents want it. And I think that as a result of that, they've been more interested or more willing to contribute.
Well, let's be honest. There's not a person in the state who's not directly impacted by it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's anybody that doesn't travel on some mode of transportation within the state that your agency is responsible for.
That's right. And unfortunately, I guess the frustrating thing about it is everything we do is right in the middle of where people are trying to drive.
That's true.
And get back and forth from work or church or school, and so it can be frustrating. But I think we're going to talk about work zone safety.
Yeah. My next question. You've got your state of Mississippi pin with the
orange pin.
Your orange ribbon. Yeah.
One of the things that you deal with since we've had such a larger budget and more ability to put projects on the streets. With that, you've got a lot more of our workforce and the workforce of our private partners in the private sector, contractors, that are out working right where people are trying to drive. And we've unfortunately we celebrated or had I wouldn't say celebrate. We had our fallen worker memorial yesterday, where we had to add a 50th name to the list of individuals that's lost their life in the conduct of their job for the Department of Transportation. And so I would just remind people that these are real folks. Behind every name, behind every face, it's a parent or a child or a brother or sister, a friend, a coworker, and we want everybody to get back home as safely as possible.
Sure.
And it's easy to get distracted or to get impatient in a work zone and to accidentally become a little bit careless. And so we hope that this week will draw attention to that and let them know that these folks are out there doing their best to improve the transportation system of the state, and we need folks to be careful when they're driving through where they are.
100%. All right, so no secret that the price of gas is up, and that's expected to have an impact on demand for fuel, which could affect your excise taxes. Sure. Because it's not based on the price of the fuel, it's based on the volume that is consumed, is purchased, and we all pay those federal and state excise taxes on each gallon purchased at the pump. When we come back, I'd like you to talk about how that may figure into your budget, your plans, your strategy.
Sure.
Coming right back with Brad White. He's the Executive Director of the Mississippi Department of Transportation. Stay with us.
Just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends, and I can't wait to get on the road again. And I can't wait to get on the road again.
From the CB. Hey, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. We're visiting with Brad White, Executive Director of the Mississippi Department of Transportation. So, Brad, before we went to break, I was just curious as to what impact you guys are contemplating from the elevated price of fuel, which could have an impact on demand, which could figure into your revenue because it is an excise tax, which is charged per gallon. So if we use less, we're going to pay less excise taxes.
Right, that's true. The biggest concern that it gives me is we still have to buy fuel ourselves.
Sure.
So it's going to increase the cost of us doing business.
Double whammy.
Our private sector partners, I mean, they use fuel in everything that they do. Something as simple as our mowing that we do around the state. I mean, we've got nearly 30,000 miles of highway that we have to try to bush hog as much as what the money will allow us to do. So the more costly that is, obviously, the less we're able to do. So, I mean, that's the concern that I look at is how it hits our budget. I mean, you could turn a paving project could end up costing nearly 25% more, a third more than it could would normally with those types of increases that we don't have. So that's something that's on our mind for sure.
So do most of the private sector contractors that MDOT engages with for various construction projects or even maintenance projects, do they typically have some sort of provision in their contract that allows them to adjust their fees based on?
Up to a point. I mean, we try to be reasonable about it. You know, I mean, there's some of it that gets locked in at a certain area, but obviously if it's something that can't be helped and it is somewhat astronomical, I mean, we try to work with people, and the same with our mowing and stuff like that.
Gotcha. I mean, you know, that's common in the transportation, in the trucking industry, where they'll have a fuel surcharge adjustment.
Right.
And there's language to that effect that's detailed in those contracts, and so it doesn't require them going back to the customer and say, hey, look, fuel went up. Sorry, we can't do it for that price anymore, sort of deal. So
and we have the ability to have supplemental agreements on anything like that would be, you know, unexpected or have a negative impact that's within reason.
Okay,
you know.
But it's something you're keeping an eye on, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Because it's
absolutely.
affecting both your revenue and your bottom line potentially.
And we started in April with the mowing, and I go back to that. That's something that most people see more of. But it hits us really hard to keep tractors moving all over the state trying to cut down the grass.
Sure, and we're in grass cutting time right? It's always good to see them out and about and doing that and maintaining the landscape around our transportation infrastructure. Just makes it so much more aesthetically pleasing. And I also think I really do. It's a factor in economic development.
I think so too. The whole broken window theory that's been around for a long time. But I think when people come through the state and travel through, I mean, they pay attention to how we present ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's something that's been important to us as we've seen an increase in our budget to try to look at those areas that would put our state's best foot forward and how we can do that at the same time of increasing the number of projects around the state.
Yeah. So you and the commissioners were proponents of legislation passed last year, went into effect, as I recall, July 1, 25, that phased in an increase in our fuel taxes of 9 cents, excise taxes, 3 cents per gallon, went into effect last July, another 3 cents this July. At a starting point where we were like next to the bottom in terms of our excise tax on fuel, or really close in the bottom.
I think Alaska was the only one behind
us, right. 18 and a half,
something like
18.4. Yeah, so I guess my question is, are you seeing the impact of that?
Well, we will just now start. You know, there was a typo in that bill that we didn't collect the first $50 million that we were supposed to get.
I didn't know that.
Year. It went to state aid roads.
Okay.
Or was made available to them due to another little typo in House Bill 1.
Okay.
So beginning this July 1 will be the first time that we'll start seeing the benefit of the 6 cents that will be added here. Which, of course, they start collecting in July. We'll start getting it, I would anticipate, somewhere around September. 6 cents would normally give us around $100 million, maybe a little bit more than that a year.
Yeah.
With it being the first year of collecting it, I expect that to be somewhere around 80 to 90.
Yeah. Okay.
And the good thing that the legislature did, they wrote into law what we could use that on. It's tied to our 3-year plan. It helps ensure the taxpayers that they can know that whether I'm the director or not, or whoever the commission is, we can't take that money and go build another building or do things like that. It's designed to go to projects that are outlined in the plan that we provide the legislature and congressional delegation and the governor to show what projects we're doing around the state. So I think it'll be a big help.
Okay.
Around.
Okay. So when this is fully implemented, we won't be at the bottom or next to the bottom. We'll be kind of in the bottom half is sort of what I remember.
Yeah,
right?
We're not going to pass anybody, but by the time the full 9 cents is in, that'll be an extra $150 million a year in recurring revenue.
Okay.
So it's going to be good. And as we've said from the beginning, it's not just the amount that's important, it's how we get it. And the fact that it's a recurring revenue in that fashion, we're able to budget for it, we're able to plan for it. Just as important, the private sector is able to plan for it. We're able to project jobs out into the future. And it'd just help us be more successful in trying to interface with the Federal Highway Administration's program and make sure that we're getting the projects out that the people can see benefit of.
Well, as I understand it, and you've explained this before, but I think it's something that the public continuously needs to be aware of, is that in order for us to tap some of the federal monies that are available for transportation infrastructure, we've got to make the case to the federal government that we have the ongoing ability to maintain and support that new capacity investment, right?
Right. Well, as I said, the way that works, Congress reauthorizes Federal Highway Administration every 5 years. So we know up front what federal money will be made available to us through the program 5 years in advance.
Yeah.
Well, the last time they reauthorized, we didn't generate enough state revenue to draw down all that federal dollars. So the last 5 years, the legislature has appropriated in our supplemental budget $40 million a year to help us make sure we draw down the other $200 million that was made available through the program by the feds.
I got you.
So increasing or modifying our funding model and increasing that revenue was vital to making sure that we weren't leaving any money on the table. And that was where we were really getting into a crunch. Now, we presented ideas to the legislature where they would have found that revenue within the budget and would not have had to raise any taxes. But that was also prior to the income tax removal debate.
Yeah.
And so when the legislature started having that discussion about trying to advance a state by the removal of the income tax, they realized by taking that much revenue out of the state budget that they had been supplementing transportation with, that they had to do something that would provide some recurring revenue to help these projects stay afloat. And I'm just very grateful that they had the foresight to think that through. And I think the overall was a net tax cut for the people of Mississippi.
It was.
In what the bill
for most people
implemented. But at the end of the day, this will give us another 150 roughly million a year after next year. It did have an inflationary component to it that helps us keep that up, which is one of the major things that was missing in the 87 4-lane program. So it's going to be a help. And again, the way that they put it into the law is that revenue is tied to our 3-year plan, which means it's tied to projects.
Okay.
So the taxpayers can have confidence that MDOT, regardless of who the leadership is, they have to put that revenue toward real projects around the state.
Makes sense. So there's got to be a little concern of the legislature's ability to continue with the supplemental funding just because of many of the dynamics that we're starting to see play out in the state government and federal government. We got Medicaid, for example, that's beating the door down for a lot more money, and that's just to stay in compliance with federal funding requirements in a match program. We got the phasing out of the income tax. We got general inflation. We got state employees, teachers looking for more money. So we've got some financial headwinds, I feel like we're facing at the state level. We've enjoyed nice surpluses the last few years with a lot of the COVID money and so forth. That's all drying up, as you know, and has been spent. So may not have that luxury in the future. And so this may be timely in that we've got the recurring revenue stream coming.
Right. That along with them taking the repealer off the lottery.
Yeah, that's right.
A huge help to us.
Yeah.
To be able to forecast and plan and be in a position where, we don't take anything for granted. When you go into a legislative session, I mean, the session before last, it ended with no state budget until a special session was called in.
Yep.
So we try to not take anything for granted and try to take the resources they give us and plan out as best we can how to implement that and move everything forward. And then where they're able to, when they have specific interests that they're looking at, we try to work with them, like if it's an economic development project or something like that they can help supplement the budget to push forward. But I'm under no illusion that the gravy train will continue.
Oh, yeah, and that's the point. I know you're not, but I want our listeners to know that these are some of the headwinds we're facing that are going to be front and center with lawmakers and certainly agency managers.
And we're ready for that. We're going to try to be responsible with the resources we have. We're going to continue to be transparent, make sure it gets literally where the rubber meets the road, and hopefully everybody can see the success thereof.
We always appreciate you coming in, my friend.
Brad
White, Executive Director of the Mississippi Department of Transportation. Also, Commissioner Willie Simmons for the Central District. He always refers to you as our CEO, so he showers the praise on you. He enjoys the working relationship.
He's a great guy.
He really is,
man.
man.
Relationship myself.
I agree.
If it wasn't for Willie Simmons, I don't know that I would be there.
Appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you.
Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Hi, this is...
It's so awesome! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show!
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. cry no more.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. We're so grateful you joined us here today. We got Scott Waller, Executive Director, Vice President of the Mississippi Business Alliance, President of the Mississippi Business Alliance Foundation, and Garrett McKinnis, CEO of MagCorp, joining us in the Element Wealth Studio at 12:05. They're going to talk about how Mississippi's employers seem to be leaning into the idea of hiring formerly incarcerated workers. Interesting. Look forward to that conversation. So we did learn that the Southern Poverty Law Center did, in fact, will contribute to, or at least pledged money, grant money, to the Parents Campaign. You know who those guys are? That's a Mississippi organization that seems like its express purpose is in defeating education freedom in the state of Mississippi. They also include in their mission, I guess you could say, some degree of lobbying for public schools. Teacher pay raises, for example, were a big focal point for them in the past legislative session. But staunch opponents, ardent opponents of education freedom are they. So is the Southern Poverty Law Center. And somehow the Southern Poverty Law Center seems to link everything to race. Right? I mean, that's at the core of their mission and their cause. That's why I said it feels like they're still stuck in 1860 in many respects and refuse to acknowledge that there's been any progress made in this country, certainly in this state, with respect to race relations. I completely disagree with that. Is it perfect? No. Do we still have work to do? Of course. Always. We're humans. We're flawed. But is it better? How can you just not open your eyes and see that? Way better. But it doesn't matter. And maybe, well, that's why they had to go gin up some of these groups they oppose, because there just wasn't enough stuff happening. It's like I said, there weren't enough of these jackpots. You know, they're waiting for the next incident of a white police officer and a black perpetrator. That's just the jackpot. Ding, 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 ding for them. So,
according to the federal government, they gave $1 million to the National Alliance affiliate. They gave $300,000 to the Aryan Nations affiliate. That doesn't sound like a fun organization to be a part of. Again, according to the Justice Department, they gave $270,000 to the Unite the Right member who helped organize that rally.
That's so unbelievable.
Infamous. They gave $73,000, according to the Justice Department, to a former KKK member.
That's crazy.
And other money to places like the American Front. All these are terrible organizations, by the way.
Right.
None of these are you don't want to be associated with. The American Front, the National Alliance, these types of groups.
So. Unbelievable. It really is incredible. I mean, it is very much bombshell, but you think the Democrats are going to come out and try to spin this and defend them? Haven't seen a lot of comments.
Hakeem Jeffries had a statement. I'll pull it up.
Okay.
But he came out yesterday or last night with one, basically defending.
Of course.
Saying that. Let's see.
Is it a right-wing conspiracy or something?
Everything's a right-wing conspiracy. Here's what he said. The so-called indictments against the Southern Poverty Law Center announced by Todd Blanche and Kash Patel is baseless and illegitimate. These partisan hacks who continue to weaponize the criminal justice system against perceived opponents will never intimidate us. And all of them will be held accountable for their corrupt behavior no matter what it takes.
Unbelievable.
What that means, that last sentence, and all of them will be held accountable for their corrupt behavior no matter what it takes. When the Democrats win the midterms, take back the House, and they probably will.
Yeah.
You're going to see hearings and such.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
Oh, boy. We also touched on, before we had the pleasure of talking to Brad White from Department of Transportation, this big election yesterday that we teased on the show. happening in Virginia. Voters went to the ballot box to vote on a measure concerning redistricting in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And, I started thinking about it. You could sort of look at it from two different perspectives, that maybe the Democrats won on the vote, and so the redistricting, at least at this point, will stand and come into play. But you could also say that, to some extent, the Republicans have a little bit to be grateful for because they didn't get blown out. Because in the gubernatorial election back in the fall, Abigail Spanberger, who's just a left-wing radical, she won by 15 points over the Republicans. So they didn't get blown out here. Maybe you could sort of mark that up as a bit of a moral victory. Hate to use that, but it could be a harbinger for the future, at least in the Commonwealth. We're taking a break right now, coming right back after Fox News and SuperTalk News to the Element Wealth studio. Stay with us. Your of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Winter is here again, oh Lord. Haven't been home in a year, oh Lord. I hope she holds on a little.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays from the Element Wealth studio on this hump day, as Rhino would say. So Will East in the Element Wealth studio with us today. Yeah, so Republicans can take a little consolation in that they just didn't get blown out. Now, as you pointed out earlier, talking about this referendum in Virginia to redistrict the Commonwealth, that very low turnout. What'd you say? 120,000 or something like that?
That was the difference. It was
okay.
The actual vote was, I think it was like 1.5 million to 1.4 million.
Wonder what that percentage represents of the total registered voter. It's got to be pretty
51,
small.
Yeah, very small for a very populated state. But the percent was yes to redistrict. That was 51, and no was 49.
49, yeah. So, razor thin. Yeah, so now...
And I don't think the Republicans spent much money.
Not like the Democrats did.
Not like the Democrats did.
They did, but not to the extent the Democrats did. So I think the Republicans kind of looked at it and said, yeah, we spent a lot of money, but they probably are a little shocked it was as close as it was. Maybe if they'd spent more money, the thing would have gone down in defeat.
Yeah.
But it's 10-1 now, the expectation of Virginia's 11 House seats. 10 will go to Democrats, 1 to Republicans. That's a net pickup of 4 for Democrats. And just looking kind of at the latest map, and it shows where this redistricting has occurred. Well, you got +5 in California, +1 for the Democrats in Utah, +4 in Virginia. So when you look at the national map, that puts you at 10. But Texas, of course, redistrict expectation there is +5 for Republicans. Missouri, +1 for Republicans. Ohio, +1. So that's 7. And then Florida is kind of projected at 1 to 5. So let's just take the middle there, 2.5. So it's essentially, doing the quick math here, it's 10 to 9. 10 for Democrats and 9 for Republicans.
Yeah.
It's about the way it shakes out.
The difference in this Virginia vote was 88,000. That's it.
Yeah, that's pretty small in a state of that size. So, but that's what it looks like. You know, something else that is on the ballot that's really interesting, because it has some connection, I would say, here certainly to the state of Mississippi. And that's a ballot measure in the show me state of Missouri. They're actually going to the polls, and I'm not sure exactly when. It may be in the fall. And this is to vote on a plan to essentially replace the state's income tax with an expanded sales tax, something that was considered here in Mississippi back in the 22 session. It ended up not passing. What did pass in Mississippi, as you recall, was just a straight reduction of income tax rates. Felt like the state could absorb in 22 a reduction, eliminating the 4% bracket that taxed taxable income between $5,000 and $10,000, and then reducing in 3 increments the 5% tax bracket, which starts at $10,000 of taxable income and up. We're in the process of trimming that down to 3%. 4%. That's this year. This is the final year of those 3. We're at 4% right now, tax year 2026. Legislation passed last year, HB 1, further reduces that top only rate we have in Mississippi now. We only have one, essentially have a flat tax. It goes from 4 to 3 over 4 years, and then after that, you know the drill. If the numbers all work out, they trim it even further by up to 2.3% over 10 years, thus fully eliminating the income tax in Mississippi over a 14-year period. But in Missouri, they're looking at replacing the income tax with an expanded sales tax.
Yeah.
And that is going to the ballot.
It'll be on the ballot November 3rd.
In November, okay.
Along with 4 other potential changes.
What's that? Marijuana?
They've got another sales tax ballot that impacts like 0.1% that
okay.
they've got to vote on. They've got an amendment for local government that requires, I don't know why that's on the statewide deal. They've got one that impacts abortion.
Yeah.
To prohibit abortion in most cases and prohibit gender transition procedures for minors under the age of 18. That'll be on the statewide ballot. They've also got one about their congressional districts. I won't get into the details of it. It's not important. So they've got 5 of those bad boys.
Wow.
And that's not all. They may have more. They're still waiting on a couple others.
Wow.
That could be on the ballot. So essentially, the state of Missouri could be changed overnight.
That's incredible. I actually thought that right after Roe that they did a ballot measure on abortion.
That's right.
And so, but which I can't remember if it was to expand abortion or restrict it, but I don't know which way it was termed or structured. But I know that it came down in favor of the pro-choice people.
Yes.
It didn't pass.
This would supersede that.
Essentially reverse that,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
Which is, that was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I remember. It was right after Roe. Of course, this was happening across the country, and I think that the pro-life movement was a bit shocked that states were leaning harder into expanding abortion and not restricting abortion. And I remember talking about that on the show. Missouri was one of those states. So looks like that there's a movement to maybe reverse that, right, and go in the other direction.
Yes, and as you know, that will bring out
the
turnout.
Big time. A lot of stuff that will bring folks to the polls to vote on. And the House voted yesterday to send this proposed constitutional amendment directing future legislatures to cut personal income tax rates as state revenues increase. It's similar to the model that was passed here in Mississippi. 95 to 59 is how it passed the House. 9 Republicans joined the 50 Democrats present for the debate, who, of course, opposed it because, well, they're for higher taxes across the board, right? Especially income taxes.
Yeah.
And they definitely wouldn't support increasing sales taxes as a way to offset the decline in revenues from cutting income taxes because they view that as regressive, meaning that the costs would be borne in a disparate way by lower income people. So this is interesting because, again, it's kind of related to a lot of folks here that would like to see further tax reform. I'm one of them, of course, but currently in Missouri, the top tax rate is 4.7% for income above $9,200. So we're, just for comparative purposes, we're at 4% for income over 10. So not a big difference in our income tax rates. The sales tax that goes to state taxes, 3% for general revenue, little low compared to ours. But there are local options that stack on top of that. So as we've talked about so many times on the show, virtually all the other states are a lot more generous, and you'll find more widespread application of local option taxes. We got just a handful here in Mississippi. Now, you have a lot that are applied to areas of Mississippi, lodging, I think, and even restaurants. But as far as just a broad, across-the-board local option, Tupelo's one that comes to mind. City of Jackson's one that comes to mind. That may be it that's on the books right now. But you look at our neighboring states, they all have local and county options, which bumps their overall sales tax rate. I mean, what you pay at the cash register is considerably higher than what we pay. It's 8% in most locations, as opposed to our 7% in Missouri. Can be as high as 12%. 12% sales taxes in several districts in Missouri. Missouri's a little different than ours in terms of how they get their revenue. They get 65% of it from income tax, 22% from sales tax. For comparative purposes, in Mississippi, 38% of our revenue comes from sales taxes, 28% from personal income taxes. Stepping aside for a break, Scott Waller with the Mississippi Business Alliance and Garrett McInnes with MagCor in the Element Wealth studio next.
This program. Gerard Gibert.
Here we go. This is huge. Huge news. Huge news. Huge. You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. We're pleased to welcome now Scott Waller, Executive Vice President of the Mississippi Business Alliance, President of the Mississippi Business Alliance Foundation, and Garrett McInnes, CEO of MagCor. Gentlemen, thanks for coming in. Good to see y'all.
Good to see you. Happy to be here.
So we wanted to have you in to talk about your discussions with Mississippi employers who seem to be more open than ever to hiring those who were formerly incarcerated and maybe giving folks a second chance and putting them to work. Tell us about that, Scott.
Well, we're very fortunate that we were able to do this work. It's through a grant from the federal government that MagCor is actually managing, which we've got a great relationship with Garrett and his team. But the idea is it's part of what is called the Partners for Reentry Workforce Development. Is how do we get more people trained and coming out ready to go in the reentry process. Our role has been to look at what business is, how business do this. So we just completed a very major kind of scientific survey where we made sure we had the numbers and we talked to the right people. We talked to hiring managers, we talked to HR folks, we talked to the owners of companies, and it was a split among big and small companies across the state, and said, hey, what's your feelings on this? And what we learned is there is a very strong sentiment that people deserve that second chance.
Yeah.
And under this fair chance study that we did, it also showed that the larger companies in particular that are already doing this, that 9 in 10 instances are very positive.
Okay.
So if you're at that rate, that's really something that we think can build upon. How do we really involve businesses in the process and figure out what it is that they're needing, and then connect that to the work that's being done on the training side to align those things.
Okay. So, Garrett, tell the folks what MagCorp is exactly, what your mission is, and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, so MagCorp, we're a state-created nonprofit. We sit at the hub of work, training, and education and reentry opportunities for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people. So we have a lot of different programs that range inside the prison to outside when people get out. But we are constantly living this every day, and I think we've been so encouraged because we know employment is oftentimes the number one factor that's going to determine whether someone succeeds when they get out.
Yeah.
And having that partnership with Scott, the engagement level of the business community here to reaffirm what we see every day. Employers are absolutely forgiving and willing to consider this population, but they do need education, and they need someone to walk alongside them to make sure that they're setting those individuals up for success. So we just see this as a huge economic opportunity for our state to support the business community, but also to reduce that prison population and long-term just make us a healthier state with healthier individuals.
So, Scott, is this something your members approached you about, or you floated the idea with them and got with Garrett? Tell us how this came about.
Kind of how it came about, as you know, is part of the merger that formed the Mississippi Business Alliance. One of the things that we have been focusing our attention on had been workforce through what is going to be our Work Future Institute for Workforce and Educational Excellence, which we stood up back in October. And when you think about the pressures on businesses, what we're hearing from all of our members is that workforce development matters, having the available workforce matters. This is just another piece of the puzzle there. So when we started this work toward the end of the year, heading into this year to get this kind of, I guess, the employer's input as to whether this is something to proceed with, the fact that the numbers were so positive just kind of was encouraging to say they view this, and the way I look at it is they view this as another piece of the workforce puzzle of how we get more trained people, more available people into the workforce. And I think the fact that, as I said earlier, that they realize, hey, everybody deserves that chance to come out and be successful. And to Garrett's point about employment is a big factor in keeping them from going back in.
Sure.
And I think I think there's really a strong sentiment among the business community in general that you want to look at every possible option to improve our workforce, and this is just one of those options.
Okay. Well, they also need people, right?
They need people.
And these are people that generally are readily available. Garrett just needs some skills development to be able to hit the ground and be productive and add value to these employers.
That's right. And I think, we've gone through an evolution in our state over the last 20 years where we have recognized we needed real public policy solutions for literacy, for example, and workforce. And we've made major public policy changes in the last 5 to 7 years in workforce. I come from that world, working alongside Scott to sort of create this centralized strategy arm of Accelerate Mississippi. That's where we are as a state with reentry. We have a lot of individuals who like to identify challenges in our corrections system and challenges with reentry. We need a few more people to take a step up and start to identify solutions.
Yeah.
And that's not pointing fingers at anyone, but it is to say that if we're talking public policy solutions with reentry, we're talking resource. We're talking dedicated time, energy, effort, and resource needs to be focused on this space if we want a healthier population long term, because this is a big piece of our pie of the number of people in our state. And there's a huge opportunity because now we've got confirmation of what we've known all along, which is employers are ready. A lot of our inmates and a lot of our people who are coming out of the correction system are desperate for those opportunities. Let's build and strengthen those pipelines to make sure that's successful.
So to that point, Garrett, what sort of policy changes, legislation do we need to ease this path from being incarcerated to being employed?
Yeah, I think from a funding model right now, our correctional funding is done based off of facilities and numbers of people incarcerated. There's no dedicated resource that says we are going to focus this amount of money, time, people, energy on really rehabilitating and preparing people for success on the outside.
Yeah.
And that's just a matter of fact. I mean, and so there are a lot of good stewards in our legislature and our elected officials who care about this space, but we've got to get some consensus around what does it look like to have real, dedicated, sustainable reentry funding. Because right now, I mean, this is a good example. This study is being done off of grant funding from the federal government that's time limited. I have an entire reentry team that are unbelievably talented, that are all grant funded.
Okay.
One-time money. That's kind of how we've handled it as a state until now. And I think it's time, and the opportunity is there, and we're ripe for grabbing this bull by the horns and saying, no, we're serious about reentry, and we see it as an economic opportunity for our state. What we see across the country is you're going to pay for corrections. You're either going to pay for it because you've got too many people incarcerated, or you're going to fund it a little better on the front end, and your population goes down, and you have more economic benefits on the backside.
100%. There's a huge economic bent to this whole issue.
That's right.
And for you, Scott, the employers, most employers, as you know, they have some form of background checks as part of their employment process, and this will be a flag. How are they managing this?
So that's kind of what I was going to say. Garrett used the word solutions. The idea is to use this data and start developing solutions. So this first work is kind of a survey that was done, and it was done very much to get a lot of different opinions. But now we're actually out having small group sessions with employers, getting their opinion on how to do things.
Yeah.
But even in the survey, what we learned is things that we got to focus our attention on is making sure that strategies are designed to fit individual employees. One size fits all is not going to work.
Sure.
The other thing, and this is to what you just mentioned, a lot of our larger companies that were part of this survey said, they have policies in place. They have hiring policies. They have policies on how to deal with issues. A lot of small companies don't. This is a great opportunity to kind of develop kind of a model for hiring policies for businesses, and give them, for the small and mid-sized businesses, give them some confidence that they're doing it the right way. And then ultimately just, making sure that we are there to help them along the way. Don't just say, okay, here's you somebody, go to work. The idea is, here's somebody, now let's hold your hand along the way and make this successful. So that's the idea behind all of this. So.
We got a break right here. We can keep talking. I know there's a little bit more we can dig into. We got Scott Waller. He's with the Mississippi Business Alliance. Garrett McKinnis, CEO of MagCore. We're stepping aside for a break in the Element Wealth studio. We'll be right back.
From the Sea Roof,
Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk Mississippi.
Little Grand Funk Railroad bumping us into this segment of Middays. We're back with you in the Element Well studio. We've been visiting with Scott Waller, Executive Vice President, Mississippi Business Alliance, and Garrett McInnes, CEO of MagCor, talking about how Mississippi employers are finding favor in hiring previously incarcerated individuals in our state and giving them gainful employment. And is there, Garrett, nothing better for human dignity, right, than working and producing and making a little money, take care of yourself, your family, and so forth. Employers, I think, are figuring that out. It's certainly better than having them locked up behind the bars and consuming taxpayer money.
Yep, dignity. I'm glad you used that word. I was actually with some incarcerated folks at our state penitentiary yesterday, and we were talking about some new work opportunities inside the prison.
Yeah,
and money's important. Money, we have to pay bills, but dignity resonates because we have to empower our people to feel like there's a purpose.
Sure,
and that's what this is all about. And you know, I was talking with an employer in the metro area last week about this study that came out, and he was raving about the loyalty that he gets from his formerly incarcerated workers because they yearn for that dignity.
Sure.
And when someone builds that really meaningful relationship of employer to employee that's healthy and constructive, that's what you get. You get loyalty, you get reliability, and you get really high-quality work.
I think that's absolutely true. And you were telling me, I don't think I'm talking out of skill here, on the break, about the state of Maine, that where they've got incarcerated individuals that are working on computers, using the internet, working as employees of Fortune companies.
Yeah, one thing that I've been really purposeful about lately is trying to take some of our teammates and partners to other states to see how they're doing things. We always can learn.
Sure.
Anybody, all of us can learn how to do things better. And there are states that are doing some really innovative things with employment and work opportunities inside the system and outside. And Kansas is another example that I've developed a really strong relationship with them, where they have employers that are moving inside the walls and employing inmates inside the prison, doing metal fabrication and really cool things inside. And then when the inmate gets out, they've already had a 3-year relationship with them, and they hire them 5 miles down the road.
That's fantastic.
In their facility. This is a huge opportunity for us as a state if we'll get creative and proactive and really build on this and not just stay doing the same thing we've been doing for the last 50 years.
So, Scott, what's precipitated this change in attitude, do you think, among the business community?
I think it's really just the availability of the workforce. That they're willing. There's, I will say this. I think 20 years ago, maybe not quite as much willingness that you have today, just because the workforce was different. You had more people. You didn't have to have the types of skills you have today. So I think there's a willingness to do it. But I think that the things that really do matter is making sure the job skills are there. And Garrett touched on that earlier in the first segment, that you want to give them training, but giving them training is not nearly as important as giving them the right training.
Yeah.
What is it that the company is going to need? Which is why this partnership is so important, because that way you can hear directly from the businesses out there that are willing to do this as to, okay, if this person has this set of skills, this will fit the job we have here, and it gives us that opportunity. There's also been some other legislative changes that are making it easier to meet your parole obligations and all of that while you're working, and I think that's made it a little bit easier for employers to know that at just any given moment somebody might not be taken off a line.
Okay.
So I think those are some of the things that we're seeing as we are putting all this together, is making sure that we understand how we match their needs with what's trying to happen over here as it relates to the training side of it. You do those two things, you got a chance for being very successful, kind of like the Kansas example, where they're learning the skill while they're in that process that will automatically translate into employment when they leave.
So is the Mississippi Business Alliance, or are you serving sort of as a clearinghouse? Maybe you've got an employer, a member that's thinking about this and is a little hesitant. Would you put them in contact with others who've had a positive experience?
That is hopefully what we will end up doing. So if there's a company out there listening now that's interested in finding out how to be involved, just email me at scott@msba.com.
Okay.
We'll start making those connections. That's part of why we're doing these small group sessions across the state, is to hear from the businesses what they're needing and we're willing to do, and then we try to match it with what this grant is going to allow us to do.
That makes perfect sense. And then, Garrett, to what extent are you guys coordinating with the Mississippi Business Alliance?
Yeah, so we're constantly working with employers, and that's one of the huge opportunities. And the reason we're so excited about this is it grows our pool of potential employers to work with. We have caseworkers that are talking with employers every day. But one of the keys is making sure those employers know the expectations and are prepared to successfully hire and keep these people supported. And so we've had, there are some, stories in the past where we've had an employer hire formerly incarcerated people. They were doing really well on the job, and then an HR person gets flagged and they get walked off the job. That's the worst case scenario. But if an employer knows what they're getting into and how to support these individuals, that's when you develop that really healthy relationship. And so part of this opportunity for us to work together on is, let's educate our employer base across the state as to what this means and how to do it successfully. And then all of a sudden you get that 9 out of 10 that's in this survey that are really pleased with the outcome.
Yeah, sure. Well, there's nothing more powerful than a reference, right? In anything that's new and novel that you're trying to sell. Very powerful in my industry for many years. Show me somebody else is using this solution and it's working for it. It's similar. Right. It's just a concept similar, different application. Well, this is good news. Anything in particular, again, you need from the legislature, Scott, that's related to this?
Well, I think from our perspective, and I think this really would fall more to Garrett's knowledge on it, is just the support in general, the resources necessary as it relates to training. As he and I were talking before we came in, training's not free. That you've got to have the resources, and you've got to have the people that understand. You got to have the equipment to train somebody. So we've got to work with those the training side of things and figure out how we partner with them. So just having that ability to make it easier to do that, I think, would be the biggest thing as we go forward. Because I think, again, you don't want to waste an opportunity, and we have an opportunity in front of us using this kind of as that pilot program to figure out how you do this and then how you scale it up across the state is kind of the whole purpose of what this is about.
Makes perfect sense. And you mentioned earlier, Garrett, just looking at other states and how they've implemented similar programs. I assume you're sharing that with our legislators. It's just maybe a bit of a guide to at least analyze and use as input.
Absolutely. We're having really constructive conversations with our corrections chairs on both sides, but also the workforce chairs on both sides, because, I mean, this is a dual topic here. It kind of dovetails, and I think we've got some really neat programs that are on the books that we run, but they're currently, the funding models that are written into the law are not particularly productive.
Okay.
So that's one thing. We'll be working towards a better structure on those existing programs that are on the books, like our work release program across the state. But we're also talking about a bigger picture of, like, how do we really get serious and support this from a funding standpoint long term for the state, so that we're really able to not only have a sustainable model, but do it across the state.
Yeah.
We don't just want this to be at one facility or another. We want to be able to touch as many inmates as we can so that we can scale the success rates.
So are there any who are incarcerated that decline, that say, no, I'm not interested in
absolutely. And that's we deal with that every day.
Sure.
We're just going to work with the people that want to be rehabilitated, that want to prepare for success. I mean, it's always a percentage game. It's no different than an employer hiring someone that doesn't have a criminal record. There's risk involved, so you want to work with the people that are motivated and that are focused on success.
Okay.
But it's a big enough pool in our state of incarcerated people that we can find a lot of people to help.
While we got you here, Scott, changing the subject a bit, the legislative session out of here finally. Any thoughts?
Well, I do think there were a couple of things, particularly on the workforce front, which is where I'm focusing most of my attention through the work at the foundation. Some really good stuff. Looking at post-secondary attainment, looking at some tax changes for workforce development as it relates to business tax credits. So, I mean, they did some good work on that front. So we really appreciate all that.
Got a little credit, too, on this ICRA program for small employers to offer health insurance to their employees. Get a little $400 credit on that, right?
So anything we can do to make it a stronger business environment, that's what we're all about. So
got it. All right, we've enjoyed it.
Appreciate it. For the record, Rhino plays really good bumper music.
Yes, Will today. Said Will's all over today. But they both do, I can assure you. We're very appreciative of their musical selection and taste. Scott Waller, Executive Vice President, Mississippi Business Alliance, Garrett McKenna, CEO of MagCor, have been our guests. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Up of Mississippi. Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Harry Truman, Doris Day, Red China, Johnny Ray, South Pacific, Walter Winchell, Joe DiMaggio. Richard Nixon, Studebaker, television, North Korea, South Korea, Marilyn Monroe.
Welcome back, everyone. That would be the great Billy Joel. What an iconic video that was. Will, that was awesome. Really good tune there. We didn't start the fire, he says.
No.
Even has a mention of Ole Miss in there, right?
Mention of Ole Miss. It's a pretty, if you actually look at the lyrics, I mean, it's incredibly well-written song because all that stuff happened.
Like the history of the country.
Yeah, from like 1950 to 1980.
Really cool stuff. So we're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. How can someone find the sin tax rate here in Mississippi? For example, alcohol, tobacco, lottery, gambling. Yeah, good question. And I'll take the easy ones first. There's no special taxes on lottery winnings or gambling prize winnings. You pay the standard federal and state income tax. It's just added to your income when you do your tax return. And you don't get a 1099 unless you win more than $599.99, $600 and up. Other than that, you kind of on your own. It's the honor system of you reporting your winnings on lottery tickets and, of course, gambling halls in the casinos in Mississippi. With respect to alcohol, yeah, that's a touchy one because we've got the old alcoholic beverage control distribution warehouse currently running at half or less strength, which has been a very high-profile and controversial issue during this legislative session. Man, retailers are really struggling to stock the inventory they need, both the packaged liquor stores and the restaurants and lounges that sell drinks and wine and so forth. That's been a problem. Not beer, it's only wine and spirits. Beer is distributed by other organizations, private sector organizations. But certainly wine and spirits have been a problem. And here's how that works. You pay the general sales tax on retail purchases of alcohol. No surprise there. But there's a per gallon excise tax. Excise taxes, just keep in mind, are different from sales taxes in that sales taxes are levied as a percentage of the actual sales price, whereas excise taxes are on the quantity. It's so much per quantity. The price per gallon of gas, the excise tax, it's per gallon. It's not on the final sales price, the amount you actually paid for the gas, as an example. So the per gallon excise tax paid by wholesalers, $2.50 for spirits, $1 for wine, and 35 cents for light wine beer. And then, this is the other big component of the tax structure on alcohol in Mississippi that honestly, Will, is the reason that lawmakers have struggled to just totally privatize the system, and that's a 27.5% markup that's applied by the ABC distribution operation. It's not a tax per se, it's a markup, just as a private distributor would charge. They're going to make a profit too. Just so happens that it's in statute in Mississippi that whatever the landed cost does, let's say they pay $100 for a bottle of wine, I'm just using that as an example, well then when they sell it to the distributor, that's going to be $127.50. And that $27.50 stays with the ABC warehouse and falls to the bottom line. That's used to essentially create what amounts to a for-profit distribution function, and the profit, if you will, from that function goes to the state's general fund. So the problem the state has is, well, if we privatize this, we lose this money that we're making being in the distribution business, and we built this model over decades that's got that money baked in. We'd have to figure out how to replace that or how to cut government to spending to offset that. So that's the fundamental problem with why we just hadn't rushed into privatizing ABC, alcoholic beverage. But that covers alcohol. If you follow that, you got sales tax at the retail level, you got a distribution excise tax, and you got a markup at the point of distribution. Tobacco is a little bit different in that there's a fairly stiff tax on tobacco products in the state of Mississippi, and I can't remember exactly how much it is, but I want to say it's like 33 cents or something like that on, and it differs depending on the category of tobacco. But so tobacco, and the point is tobacco and alcohol, they do have some special add-on taxes.
68 cents
68
per pack.
cents. Okay, there you go.
20 cigarettes.
Okay, there you go.
So almost 3.5 cents per cigarette
is the tax, and that goes to the state of Mississippi's general fund. So you got alcohol, tobacco, special taxes, additional taxes on top of standard sales taxes. But these other items, lottery winnings and gambling winnings, are subject to federal and state income taxes just as any other income is. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio after Fox News and SuperTalk News.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply, and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays from the Element Wealth studio on this hump day. That's where we are, right in the middle of the old week. Moving right along. What about the Labor Secretary, Will? She got some problems there, doesn't she?
Her problems have been relieved because she ain't in the office no more.
I got to tell you, I honestly never thought she was a good pick. I thought she was a bad pick from day one. Said it on the show, mainly because of her strong pro-union stance. I just felt that was inconsistent with Republicans' stances with respect to labor. And we believe in the right to work, meaning you can work without joining a labor union, even at a company that it has a labor union. And, you know, maybe there's some positive aspects and some value propositions some labor unions provide, but people shouldn't be forced to join one, in my view. And there are many cases where they actually are harmful, I would say. These days, I think their time is kind of past. But I never thought it was a good pick of the ones that the president selected here. And it's not surprising to me that she's out. Now, there's all kinds of crazy reports about U.S. Labor Secretary Lori Chavez de Rimmer. And there's some scandals involving her workplace, having a workplace affair, misuse of funds. But the one that caught my attention was the prolific consumption of alcohol on the job, that she would often order her staffers to go fetch her some Sauvignon Blanc. And I don't know if you saw this, Will, they nicknamed her Savi B. So, and like ordering her staff to keep an eye on her parents and just weird stuff like that, man. So a rather high-profile departure from the president's cabinet. She was banned from the Department of Labor building following allegations of sexual misconduct and, quote, creepy behavior towards staff, including an incident. I didn't see any details. It was caught on camera back in December with respect to her staff. The first thing that hits me when I see stuff like this is so over the top. First, how does she get through the vetting process and nobody knows? She just didn't start this comportment, this behavior. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, I guess maybe after you make it through, you feel like you're just untouchable. And you can keep behaving like this as a cabinet secretary?
Power corrupts.
Golly. So now we've seen her. We've seen the crazy stuff with Kristi Noem. I think Pam Bondi was more a function of how she handled the Epstein situation and just appeared incompetent, honestly, in that respect. So, and are there more on the horizon? Remember the first term, many of the initial appointments didn't last very long, right?
Very few made it all the way through.
Yeah. I was researching that this morning and just looking back on how many didn't last very long. So I haven't heard. I've heard rumors about Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick because his name appears in the Epstein files, it has been reported, some 233 times or something like that. So maybe he's next on the list. There's some rumors to that effect. Nothing official, just what I would call them rumors, I guess. But, man, she's out of there, and I feel like that's probably in the best interest of the country. I never thought she was a good pick. And, it's one of those things where things just work out, have a way of working out correctly. Yeah. I think that's exactly what happened here. The Postal Service, they are temporarily suspending their payments to their pension plan. They said that the post office said, we're less than a year away from running out of cash. That's what they told the Office of Personnel Management on April the 9th, just a couple of weeks ago, not more than a couple of weeks ago. They said, we're going to run out of cash if Congress doesn't come through, but they're at a point where they were unable to contribute to their pension plan. And there's also reports of postal workers who have retired and have been waiting for months to get their benefits started. And in fact, they're now in arrears, meaning that the date at which their benefits should have begun is past. And they're not receiving these benefits because they're trying to deal with what are limited personnel and systems and resources to get their dead-gum pension process. That's a hell of a note. You pay in your whole life, you're ready to retire, start drawing on your pension, and you can't get it done, can't get it worked out, can't get it established. But the Postmaster General David Steiner told members of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee just a couple of weeks ago, less than a year from now, I'm quoting, the Postal Service will be unable to deliver the mail if we maintain the status quo. How about that? That was in a hearing on March 17th. So roughly a month and a couple of days. Man, he says that without help from Congress, the post office may have to consider cutting delivery days or closing post offices. Not a happy thought there. But to try to make ends meet, they decided not to contribute to their pension the federal employees' retirement system, and also will continue to provide. They've got an additional retirement plan as well, but they can't. It's a thrift savings, sort of a 401k style plan, and they're not able to contribute to that either. So they're trying to make ends meet with what limited funds they have, and they're sounding the alarms to the Congress. You better do something, or we can't deliver the mail.
I told you, I think at our meeting on Monday that I contributed $3 to the United States Post Office a couple weekends ago. I got woken up early Saturday morning. I normally sleep in on Saturdays. I got woken up by the knock at the door. It was the postman. The postman always rings twice. And it was my postman who said, for this package, he says it's $3. Cash on delivery, COD.
Right.
And I told him, I said, dude, I haven't heard of a COD in 30 years. And he said, we take cash only. I can't give you any change.
Yeah.
And I had to go. I went and found like a $5 bill and gave to it. I said, just keep it.
Yeah.
But so I contributed $5. But yeah, a COD, which I didn't
Used
know
to be
that it still
common.
existed. Used to be very common.
Well,
yeah.
before you could buy stuff online and have it shipped, and you've paid for it before it's ever left the
and
dock,
before
right?
probably FedEx and UPS and all these others were, I mean, they were shipping, but to individuals' homes, it was not as common. I mean,
That's right.
When I was a kid, I don't ever remember UPS pulling up.
Well, I
mean,
don't remember when they were formed. They were formed after I was a kid, but
Yeah.
that their primary function was business delivery. Same with FedEx. That all came about afterwards. So, but yeah, the use of COD once was common because you didn't have this online ability to pay for stuff, and people weren't going to sell to you on account, give you credit. That's pretty risky, and we're going to ship it to you, and then you get the invoice and turn around and pay it to some unknown supplier. Yeah. So COD was the way they'd handle it. Usually there would be a fee tagged on top of the collection as well. The COD collection fee is what they call it. So you'd pay for whatever the amount of the shipment was, the goods being shipped, plus some COD fee just for the hassle.
But I wonder if the post office is going to start doing more like Amazon deliveries and stuff, because as you know, FedEx and UPS are trying to get out of that business.
They already do. And so they're required to, and Amazon utilizes that last mile capability, and that's baked into our laws where they are able to leverage that at a pretty low price, and that is a problem. It's increased their volume considerably, but they don't have a lot of revenue to show for it. I don't know if that may change that whole situation as well, which would mean that more costs would be shifted on to consumers.
Yeah.
Should that be the case. But I just thought that was interesting that they now, I mean, we've known about this for years, that their pension plan was in trouble and that the organization itself lost $8 billion last year, United States Post Office did. And now they're saying, yeah, we're running out of money. If you guys don't throw some more at us, we're not going to be able to deliver the mail. It's kind of a daunting thought, honestly. Speaking of money, there you go. Little Pink Floyd money on cue.
Last time the UPS made a United States Postal Service made a profit was 2006.
Oh, wow. 20 years ago. They've been bleeding ever since then. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio. Stay with us.
Hello, my name is John.
Interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go. This is huge. Huge news. Huge news. Huge.
You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Why am I soft in the middle now? Why am I soft in the middle? The rest of my life is so hard. I need a photo opportunity. opportunity. I want a shot of redemption. Don't want to end up a cartoon in a cartoon graveyard.
Welcome back. It is Middays from the Element Well studio. We got some sports talk remotes. Those boys are going to be busy. They're going to be at Northwest Mississippi Community College in Senatobia today. They'll be there for the Celebration of Champions, honoring an incredible year of successes for Northwest Community College. And then on Friday, Sports Talk Mississippi is in Oxford to kick off the 27th Double Decker Arts Festival. It's a 2-day celebration of music, food, and art on the historic Oxford Square. The music lineup begins on Friday with several acts, including Shane Smith and the Saints. On Saturday, it's a full day of music, food, and fun, with Wilco taking the stage Saturday night. Don't miss out on the fun. It's the Double Decker Arts Festival. For more information and see the music lineup, go to visitoxfordms.net. Visit oxfordms.net. Then, of course, Post Malone Jelly Roll. This is a ticket giveaway presented by Legacy GMC and Laurel, two business music giants. Post Malone and Jelly Roll will be making a stop at Vaught Hemingway Stadium on the Ole Miss campus on Friday, June the 5th. Joining them in Oxford will be country music singer Carter Faith. Go to supertalk.fm to find a registration location near you. This giveaway is brought to you by Legacy GMC and Laurel. And if you want to be part of this promotion with a registration box to attract customers, send us an email at sales@supertalk.fm or give us a call at 601-991-2305. As always, we're in the Element Wealth studios. Are you thinking about or planning for retirement? Do you have a plan? Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income growth and guarantees. The market's comfortably in the green with the bulls in charge today, and that's because there's some degree of relief on the president announcing that the ceasefire will be extended. Now, he says until they come to the table and sign the deal. Don't know how long that will be. Don't really have much details about that, but it was announced last night, Will, that the Vice President, J.D. Vance, will not be traveling to Pakistan. And I think that is because the regime over there in Iran says, yeah, we're not so sure about signing on to this deal and really coming to the table to negotiate. So they sort of called it off, but the president haven't really seen any of the logic behind his decision, but decided against letting all hell break loose because just Sunday, right, he said, may have been Saturday, it was over the weekend, he said, yeah, if you don't sign this deal by Tuesday, we're going to blow up every power plant and every bridge. Well, that did not happen. The president seeing fit to extend the ceasefire. But the markets, at least, like that. And the other thing that's affecting markets a little bit is the anticipation of earnings from Tesla. They're going to announce their earnings this afternoon, and the stock is likely to make a big move following these results. Now, they're in the throes of supercharging their AI practices in goods and services and incorporating AI in their autonomous vehicles and their humanoid robots. Elon Musk is, all over the robots. He's making significant investments in those technology. So all the traders are on edge. The book is, at this point, they're expecting a positive report with positive outlook, and that the stock could swing up about 5% today, but then about the same amount down by the end of the week. Just don't know. That could put the shares at about $409 if all that should happen with a 5% swing to the upside. So that's what's going on your markets. In the meantime, Iran tankers, they went dark to sail past the blockade, and they're full of oil. I'm really not sure. I'm a little shocked that this actually happened. The reports are that at least two fully loaded Iranian tankers just went right through the Persian Gulf, sailed out into the Persian Gulf, I should say, through the strait, right past a U.S. blockade. In the last day, 4 million barrels of oil on board these two Iranian tankers. At least 34 have made their way through the strait in the U.S. blockade line. I don't get that. With 19 vessels headed out of the Persian Gulf. So, does it sound like the blockade is actually working? I mean, when I read that, so I'm a little confused with...
The whole thing is confusing.
It really is. But right now, I think the markets are kind of shrugging it off. I mean, that's kind of your barometer because they're pretty attuned to the news and certainly the outlook.
There was one group that sent some journalist over there to basically watch, because you can actually follow some of these ships online. There's apps for it, but they didn't trust it, so they sent some guy over there to just tell us what you see.
Be on the ground.
Be on the ground. Call us if you see something.
Do a visual inspection.
Yeah.
Huh? Wow. On the C Spire text line, Blake in the Delta, we were talking in the last segment about how the U.S. Post Office has suspended its contributions to its pension plan and has warned the Congress, we're going to run out of money in a year. We can't deliver the mail at full strength if you don't give us some more. And you looked up that the last time they actually produced, we're calling it a profit, and that's what Blake's question is about. What'd you say, 2006, right? 20 years ago? So he says the U.S. Post Office it's supposed to be for profit. It's a public service. That's absolutely true. They're supposed to be totally self-funded, meaning they get no taxpayer funding, and they're not legally mandated to make a profit, but they are designed to break even so that they can at least cover their operating costs through the revenue from their products and services. And it was in 2006 there was actually a law passed, the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act requires totally the organization to fund its operation. Roughly 169 million addresses without taxpayer money. So they kind of act like a business, but they're restricted from maximizing profits like one. So they can't just say, hey, look, we could actually charge more money for postage and make more money. They don't operate that way. But here's what to keep in mind, Blake, is, yeah, there are some years that they produce, I wouldn't necessarily call it a profit. I think I would describe it more as a positive cash flow, and there are other years they don't. So you're trying to kind of pair up the bad years with the good years, and over a period of time, sit at break even. But you can clearly see that over the last several years, they've been losing money like crazy. And the problem is, subject to just standard market dynamics, if they increase the price of what they do, deliver the mail and parcels and other services, then the volume goes down because people find alternatives. You were talking about that earlier.
Do you know what their most profitable product is?
What's that?
First-class mail.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And what is sent first-class mail is usually what? Business stuff.
That's true.
Well, guess how they send that stuff now? Through email.
That's exactly right. It's all been
because
reduced.
of that, you see what
their volume's definitely down. No doubt about it. So, yeah, it's a conundrum. No doubt. Gerard, go compare the difference in pricing for a letter between the different carriers. In reality, the USPS is nothing but subsidized shipping. Every bill we have these days can be paid for with your phone. The USPS has outlived its usefulness. I hear you, Mose, and I believe that no doubt, it's just as Will was saying, with this digital world we all live in now, there are lots of ways of moving information back and forth. Paying bills is an example where you used to have to write manual checks, put them in the envelope, and then mail them to. And the same as the people who sent you invoices would do that in the mail. And many of those, almost everybody now has a way to opt out.
Yep.
Your bank statement is an example. You can opt out and just do electronic only. And I've done that for virtually everything I am. But in spite of that, Mose, I still have a mailbox that's full every day with a bunch of junk mail. It's catalogs and stuff.
Very rarely do I get anything that is of value.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, okay, trash. And a lot of political stuff as well, right? Yeah. And somehow my name ends up multiple times from the same sender, and so I get that as well. Well, we're going to take a break right now. We got half an hour of middays remaining today from the Element Well studio. Thanks again for being with us. Coming right back.
From the Seabrook Days with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back. It is Middays. Eddie Money bumping us into this segment here on the program. On the C-Spire text line, this comes up a lot, Will. What about all the money from the lottery that's supposed to go to keep our roads up? It's a good question. It's not that much money. It's $80 million a year in a $2 billion budget. So it's certainly more than nothing, but it's just a tiny fraction of the agency's overall budget for capacity and maintenance projects. 80 million bucks in a $2 billion budget is, again, not a great amount of money, about, 4%? So teeny tiny at the end of the day, but still useful and able to plug into a lot of areas and needs that otherwise would not be handled, but certainly not enough to rely on to really run the agency or eliminate revenue sources to the agency. Now, there was some discussion last year about converting the lottery proceeds to be used for the PERS program, the Public Employees Retirement System. First $80 million, of course, of lottery proceeds in a year go to the State Highway Fund, the excess to the Education Enhancement Fund. The lottery, on average, since its inception in November of 2019, it was passed into law in special session in August 18th, signed by Governor Phil Bryant. Became law at that point, and then first tickets sold November of 2019. So it's been honking around for almost 7 years, and it averages about $120 million a year of net proceeds. First $80 million, again, to the State Highway Fund, the excess to the Education Enhancement Fund. That's a non-general fund pot of money for all levels of education in the state, and that bill prescribes how that money is spent. Whatever is transferred into that fund, deposited into that fund, both from the legislature as an appropriation and the money that comes from the lottery. And it's primarily used for early learning collaborative is what it's called, for preschool children, and then also for fixed assets, stadiums, buildings, and so forth. There are numerous uses, and there are formulas that say, okay, with all the money you got, this much goes here, this much goes there. And I would say it's one of the reasons that most schools, at least, have been able to get money to their teachers to go buy school supplies before school starts, those that are on the more traditional schedule. Whereas before, it was always a problem, just always waiting on money. When school started, you haven't given us our school supply debit cards yet. I know my daughter is a teacher. would experience that every year. And I'd have to go help her out and front her some money so she can get the school supplies at her classroom, because sometimes it may be a month or two into the school year before they get. So that has improved. It's not perfect. It's not been totally eliminated, but I think that's to some extent this $45-50 million is coming over from the lottery every year into that education enhancement fund. So it's certainly all of that helps, and certainly helps roads and bridges, but it's not sufficient just to run the agency on, certainly. And the same is true with the taxes paid by casinos, the gaming tax into the state. Welcome revenue for sure, and incrementally beneficial for sure, but not a major part of the budget. It's $250 million a year roughly total. $80 million of that or so stays local. 170 goes to the state. Not a lot in a $7.3 billion budget, but useful and helpful, no doubt about it. But always good to kind of pass that on and clear that up. So let's see. Ask Brad. This came up from Greg and Newton, why they're spending so much money when he was on the show. It's just hard, guys, to check this text line a lot of times when you're engaged in an interview. I apologize for that. So much money on the interstates, cutting and mulching trees and bushes. Looks like the money should be spent on the roads where traffic is. I actually think it's a good idea, Greg. I think that, first, that can become a problem, can become a road hazard. And I do think it's necessary, and it's in our best interest from an economic development perspective to keep those roadways tidy and the landscaping look really nice and aesthetically pleasing. I think there's benefit and value. I agree, you don't need to go overboard on that for sure, but I think there's some benefit to that for sure as well. Is the state taking money from the water well project and giving it to the MDOT in August? I'm not familiar with that. You know what he's talking about there? Sorry, Will. So, and of course, a lot of people out complaining. The Summit roundabout was the most asinine thing ever. It's so far made the intersection more dangerous. I actually like roundabouts. I think one of the first ones in the state was built over here not far from our location. I passed through it to and from my house, generally speaking, on Highland Colony Parkway.
Once you get used to it,
you got to get used to it. You like it. I agree. Now, the other day, I got to tell you, I was passing through, coming from the west, Old Agency Road. I know those of you that aren't familiar with the area may not be familiar with that, but just imagine a roundabout. You got 4 roads that intersect with it, going north, south, east, west. And I'm coming from the west. And, of course, you turn right. We go right in this country. So I looked up as I looked to, this would have been to the north, to see the oncoming traffic flowing in that direction, right? It's in that would be in a counterclockwise direction. And there's a truck, late model truck, going the wrong way. I took a photo of it thinking, oh my gosh, this is a crash waiting to happen. And everybody was like making their way around it. And I kind of looked in my rear view mirror, and he finally was able to exit, and get off of the thing. But like, why did you turn left?
Yeah.
We don't turn left. We're not in England here. So
I don't know.
But I took a photo of it. That's the first time in my years of passing through that I've ever seen. I've seen some crazy stuff on that roundabout. But as you said, as people gotten used to it through the years, rarely do you see a problem. People know not to go from the inside lane and cut all the way over to exit, right, to a road intersecting. They know that. And so I find everybody to be pretty good, and you rarely see an accident on the thing. But in this one, they avoided one by the will of God, I think, because they were going the wrong way, man.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was a weird one. No doubt about it. Ask Brad about MDOT's points and raise structure for MDOE employees while you have him. DOT has employees that have waited on raises for years and have met all the point requirements to achieve those raises. If they've been given a raise, it was only a percentage of what was due. State Personnel Board has their finger in it as well. My guess is, and I don't want to speak for Brad, and I apologize I didn't get to this, and I can send it to him. He'll answer me, and I'll share it with you tomorrow. But my guess is that there's maybe some issues with the State Personnel Board, and here's why. To my knowledge, Will, and who was it we were talking to, was it yesterday about this, we don't allow variable pay. I oppose that. I think we should. I think we should institute some structure, some program of variable pay, bonus pay, if you will, some sort of compensation across the spectrum of certainly state government. And that would be based on achievement of certain metrics and KPIs and objectives that are reasonable and measurable. That's business 101 for compensation. And we don't allow that by statute in Mississippi. And I think we should, honestly. I think it works pretty dang good in the private sector, and I think we ought to consider it in the public sector as well. And we can put our heads together and come up with something that would work. I'm confident of that. So I can only imagine that maybe there's some conflict with policy and law with respect to that. Let's see. If people, just Shaq Bully in Biloxi says, would drive the speed limit, roundabouts wouldn't be necessary. Well, I have to think about that, Shaq Bully. When you got an intersection, how would you regulate the traffic through the intersection? If people drove the speed limit, everybody just looks out forever. Hey, watch out, he's coming. I mean, I don't see how that works. So it's either the roundabout's in lieu of a red light, a stoplight, traffic light.
It helps that congestion.
Yeah, just keeps it flowing.
Because that one you were talking about, that can be extremely congested if you had a red light there.
Oh,
it would back up.
Yeah.
For ages.
And what happens is, based on the timing of the settings, like you're looking around like, I'm waiting for this red light to change, and there's nobody around in either direction. That's really the purpose, is just to not have to wait.
I go through one of the worst intersection out here, go through one of the worst intersections, and what happens is they see that yellow light, and they speed up.
Oh, exactly.
And they block the road.
Yeah, exactly. You end up with a lot of problems with that. All right, the great Eddie Money once again bumping us out of this segment. Back with the final segment of Middays on this hump day after this.
At the Citizens Bank.
Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk Mississippi.
I paid the bank note, the car note, and yes, I paid the phone bill too. And then I turned around and I found that the house notes due.
On the C Spire text line, they cut the trees to dry roads faster during rainy conditions. Water is the biggest factor in creating issues with roads. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it also helps. They cut those trees down when we get ice storms.
Yeah, it certainly helps from a power line, aerial power line perspective. Yeah. Those guys are always out trimming to avoid the branches when they get frozen up, fall right on the power lines. And so you see them certainly in the summer months out and about trimming as they've grown. On the C Spire text line, if the lottery is such a good thing, why don't the states use the profits to play the lottery in other states to increase the profits? I don't think that would be wise, because you could see how dang complicated that would be. Okay, who determines what games to play and at what amount? Right? I mean, that's just not practical.
I'm going to give you $1 million to go out and buy lottery tickets. I'm going to give you $1 million.
Yeah, exactly. And so this person says, I know the answer. It proves that playing the lottery is not wise. It's basically a tax. Well, are eating Twinkies every day wise? Or is drinking alcohol wise? It's about entertainment. I don't know why people object to that. It's not about taxing people. It's just, do we want the government to say, I'm sorry, you can't have fun? It's about having fun. That's really what it's all about. It's not a tax. It's about having fun. And the state operates it.
You don't have to buy it.
Yeah, nobody's putting a gun to your head. They do if you don't pay your income taxes or your sales taxes or your property taxes. They will all day long. So, yeah, I differ with folks on this. And look, folks that are not responsible, don't play responsibly, shame on them. My guess is those same people would spend their money in other ways. It's also not responsible. They don't need an excuse to be irresponsible with their money if the lottery doesn't capture some of it, something else they don't need to buy will. And that's unfortunate. But so we have a problem in that some people just can't manage their household affairs, and others can. So those that can, let them have fun. As far as I'm concerned, those that don't, shame on you. Take care of your household affairs before you go buy lottery tickets or any of this other stuff that you don't need or that should be prioritized well below the higher priorities of your mortgage and your family and food and other things you got to have just to subside. CC in Senatobia says roundabouts are awesome. Got one in Senatobia at the worst intersection in town, and now traffic flows smoothly all the time. Used to get all backed up. I hear you. That's my experience too. CC, appreciate that. It's disingenuous for the government to promote it. To promote the lottery? That's disingenuous? Well, the law says, and this came up when I was going through my Senate testimony. When I said this, Senator Hobb Bryan went nuts, by the way. I want you to know. You're not surprised at that, of course. He's known for his drama in the state Senate. But the law literally says the purpose of the Lottery Corporation is to maximize revenues to the state of Mississippi. So he asked me that same question as part of my Senate testimony. Why are you advertising? And I quoted that from the law, from the Alice G. Clark Lottery Act. And he went ballistic. I mean, he slammed his hands. His water went flying everywhere. I said, I'm just here to do the job that you people in the legislature enacted into law. So, again, the purpose is to encourage people to have fun, play the lottery, and the state makes a little money off of it. What's wrong with that? It's serious. Now, just so you'll know, those of us on the board, those who work for the lottery, those who are vendors and partners to the lottery, those who own retail establishments that we call them retailers that actually sell lottery tickets cannot play. Nor can anyone in my household. Now, my family members that don't live in my household, such as my adult children, they can play, by the way. That's in accordance with the law. And, man, they don't. It's rare, except the few people you know that, you know, when the Powerball and the Mega Millions, the multi-state games, the jackpot gets way up there. Some people say, what the heck? You know, just have a little fun here and see what happens. And I've always thought, oh, my gosh, if my son or daughter wins, I'm going to pay hell the rest of my life for this. And then I say, well, that's $1 billion. I think I can get over it.
My feelings won't be hurt too long.
Gerard, I believe you are a devout Catholic. I am. No matter what denomination, pretty devout in your faith. Can you talk about the people of the church who oppose the lottery and how you believe that as a believer? I don't really know why people of the church oppose the lottery, even though they consider that a sin. I guess it would be the same people that think dancing and drinking alcohol and other things. Look, I respect that. That's part of their faith. That's part of their values in their particular church. I've never heard that even be discussed.
I know a church that came out against the lottery, from my hometown.
Okay.
The same weekend they were doing a raffle. I kid you not, for a shotgun. I kid you not.
I'll just say again, I don't think that the government should stand in the way of people having fun. And it's about entertainment, nothing more, nothing less. And don't tell me people don't have fun doing it, because they do. Guarantee you. Out of here today, back tomorrow. Stay safe and God bless.
A SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.